All right, coaches, it's finally here. We're at the Open 25.1. Let's talk about how to coach this workout, and we're going to use the 6 criteria as our guide for it. So we've got teaching, seeing, and correcting, group management, presence and attitude, and demonstration. So for teaching, seeing, and correcting, when you look at the movements that we've got the burpee, we've got the lunge, and we've got the clean and press sort of deal there. The most teaching, seeing, and correcting is going to wrap up in that clean and press. So what you're going to do is have a progression. Likely you can use the one from CAP that they're going to give you that allows for moving and understanding using the hips and legs while staying flat-footed and really a nice body position for a clean to the shoulder and then the shoulder to overhead. Where you as a coach are going to look during that would be weight about the foot, making sure that they're driving through a full foot. You're looking for letting the hips do the work, and the way you look for that is to make sure they're not bending their arm too soon, and the speed of the bell from between the legs up to the shoulder. That should be something that happens relatively quickly. In addition to that, when it goes overhead, you're going to want them to use their hips and legs, because if they're pressing a bunch, that's going to completely fatigue their overall press in the burpee. So we want them resting those arms as much as possible, so using the hips as much as they can there. So seeing is going to go towards hips, flat foot, arm, elbow, making sure that the hips and legs are doing all the work. So that's where you should put your vision on that one. When it comes to teaching the other 2 movements, it's more about standards teaching. So making sure they're understanding some of the basic pieces of it. If you go into the movement standards list that they have here, they've got some really awesome things talking about common no reps on the burpee, making sure you have to restart. That stuff just has to all be very clear so people really understand it. So make sure you truly understand it before you deliver it to them. And that's going to be the core to the teaching today. Making it nice and simple, really relaying the standards and talking about how important they are. That being said, you already coach your gym, and your people must know how important standards are because you are awesome. When it comes to group management for today, we've got the idea of running heats. If you're running heats, you got to remember that we've got 2 15-minute heats. That's 30 minutes of class with a probably 3 to 5 minute transition. So you're looking at about 35 minutes worth of class wasted on that actual workout. Wasted. It's not wasted. It's used for that workout. So what we're going to have to do with that is make sure that the rest of the session is smack bang on point, getting them nice and warm, getting them hyped up. So that way, once they hit that, there's no confusion about what's happening. So make it a relatively quick, generalized warm up, and then really move into just moving through these movements and getting them understood really, really well. From there, it's a matter of making sure that you navigate the room in a way that you can successfully have people moving and not fully running into each other. A couple different strategies for this would be to either have a single lane where people are moving one direction and a single lane where people are moving the other. So maybe under the rig, they move one direction, and just to the side of the rig, they move another. So they can go lunge one direction, come back under the rig, and lunge the other. That's one way to do it. And they just spread out in the room and do their snatches or their clean and press and the burpees. The other way you might want to think about doing it is setting people up in lines so they kind of face each other. So 2 big lines, 15 feet apart if you have that kind of space in your gym. And then people will spread out as the workout goes on, because as burpees and clean to press overhead get more fatiguing, you're going to have to spend more time on those, and the lunge will start to become less meaningful as you're moving through it. In that case, it makes sense to have just 2 straight lines and then have people kind of lunging at each other and just navigating each other slightly for the first round or 2, and then it moves on into it'll spread itself out nice and evenly for the most part. So pick, depending on what your gym is, either the lanes where we go out and around or the people facing each other and what you got going on. Now, with the presence and attitude today is about hyping people up and getting them to understand where they need to be. Now, this is kind of wrapped up in teaching as well, but presence and attitude for the day is getting people the right scale. And this is the type of workout that I think most people, or if you're on the fence, I should say, should be going RX. This might be the only workout that can go RX in the open, and I would recommend pushing people that direction. It's something where the only person who shouldn't really go RX in this, even if you're getting less rounds, is somebody who it's, dangerous for them to go overhead with that kind of a load. So I think a lot of people, even if they're a little bit slower than they might normally be if they were to maybe pull this workout back, this is a great time to think about pushing something that's a little bit more difficult. So workout number 1 of the open, as long as they're safe, I would push them towards doing this workout a little bit more RX'd. Now, the reason I call that presence and attitude is because you're going to have to kind of cajole them that direction. A lot of people are going to want to be like pulling it back. I personally would make people push that way. Now, obviously, you don't have to make them do it. They can always scale. And the main person that I personally would scale on this would be somebody who fails to lock out well, maybe got really tight shoulders, so they need a lighter bell or a lighter dumbbell to pull it back. or somebody who's got some midline stuff who's worried that going overhead is going to be potentially not great for them. So keep an eye on those two types of people and pull them back if necessary. Otherwise, I would push people towards that more RX version because it's a good milestone for you to hit. Hey, I did an open workout as RX. That was the first one of the year. So they can start on a high note, which would be awesome. When it comes to demonstration, this is more just making sure that when you're clearly showing all the movements, you're doing them in a way that is quite virtuous. So is a burpee, your chest touching the ground? Are you doing the nice jump over? When you do your clean to your shoulder to overhead, is the elbow nice and locked out on your clean? Is it locked overhead very clearly? Is everything looking really good? So that's what I'd look at for demonstration. If you're running Friday Night Lights is always super fun. Ideally, in a Friday Night Lights section, you have kind of 3 different groups. One getting ready so they can come right on. Another doing the workout nice and hard, and then ready to judge. And then the judging that can get off and kind of prep themselves and get nice and warm before it. So those are the kinds of ways that I would run a big group of Friday Night Lights and cycle people through it. Good luck. Enjoy the heck out of this workout. And here we go. 25.1.